theoretical normal capacity. Theoretical normal capacity means the capacity as specified in the, for example, machinery. We are buying a machinery. Machinery will have the maximum capacity which is mentioned in the machinery itself, that the maximum per hour production could be this. So that becomes a theoretical maximum capacity. We consider, while calculating fixed cost per unit, we consider normal capacity. Alright, we consider normal capacity. Fine, let us get started with today's class. Last class we discussed a lot of things. I hope all of you remember what we discussed in the last class. And we are going to continue from there what we discussed. Alright, do you want to quickly go through what we discussed? Just want to go through the formula. The 4 formulas, I want you to look into these formulas. First, the first formula, present value of annuity. So please go through present value annuity formula and present value of a single amount. Fine. So have you gone through it? Fine. Let us get started with it. Let me continue from here only. Present value of the annuity. The formula is amount of an annuity into present value interest factor annuity. What is the formula to calculate present value interest factor annuity? I am going to tell you. Similarly, future value of an annuity is equals to amount of annuity into future value interest factor annuity. One very important relationship that you need to understand is present value interest factor is equals to 1 divided by future value interest factor, or inverse of future value, and vice versa. But present value interest factor annuity is not equals to inverse of future value interest factor annuity. So this relationship is not true. I want you to remember this. This is very, very important. Now let us understand little more about how to calculate present value interest factor annuity. I want all of you to focus here. First, understand what is present value interest factor annuity. For example, let us take one example. You have invested how much? Invested, suppose $500,000 in a project, which is going to give you how much money? It is going to give you a cash flow. What is cash flow? We will learn about it. So it is going to cash flow. How much cash flow it is going to give you? So year 1 to year 5. To year 5, it is going to give you a cash flow of how much? So year 1 to year 5, it is going to give you a cash flow of $200,000 per annum. Now, the question is, can I use a shortcut formula here? Answer is, 2 things has to be satisfied. The periodic interval should be same, and second important thing, the amount of money or the amount of cash that we are receiving has to be same. Then only shortcut formula can be used. What is shortcut formula? So we have to understand 2 things. First, is it an annuity? Answer is yes. If it is an annuity, then we can definitely use the shortcut formula. And what is the shortcut formula? Yes, present value interest factor annuity or future value interest factor annuity. One of these 2. So first one, annuity. Yes, it is an annuity. So this condition is satisfied. Now the question is, this amount is 500,000 is in which year? So this amount 500,000 is in year 0. And this amount is going to be in how many years? It is between year 1 to year 5. When I say year 1, it means beginning of year 1. Alright, it means beginning of year 1. And when I say year 5, it means beginning. No. None of you. Okay, one person pointed out. Exactly. So it means end of year 1. And when I say year 5, it means end of year 5. Very good. Now, here I am investing 500,000 in year 0 and remaining money I am getting in year 1 to year 5. The problem here is the value difference. The value of money today and the value of money over a period of 5 years are going to be different. So you are going to convert this amount of money into today's value terms. Question is, how are you going to convert this in today's value term? So you are going to use a formula called present value interest factor annuity is equals to amount of annuity multiplied by present value interest factor annuity. Alright, here it should be present value of an annuity. Now, how are we going to calculate that? What is the amount of annuity? Amount of annuity is given in the question as 200,000. So let's write 200,000. Multiplied by, how do you calculate this value? So it is going to be, rate has to be mentioned and period is already mentioned. Let's assume the rate is suppose 10% per annum. Now, so it is going to be 10% and it is going to be 5 years. How do we calculate that? All of you take up calculator. Now in calculator, what do you have to type? Keep listening to me. First I am teaching you the calculator shortcut and then I am going to teach you more about it. So first the calculator shortcut. What is the rate of interest? 10%. So in calculator, 1.10 divided by equals 5 times you have to press equals. I will repeat, 1.10 divided by 5 times you press equals and then press GT. You will get 3.791. 3.790786. So 3.791. So what is the present value interest factor annuity? 3.791. I hope all of you have got. If you have not got, I will repeat it. So understand the steps. 2 lakh multiplied by 3.791, you are getting how much? 58,200. This is the amount of money that you are getting. 758,200. Means if you invest 500,000 today, over a period of 5 years, whatever you are going to get, that is worth $758,200. In real value terms, your return is going to be how much? Your net gain is going to be $258,200 in real value terms. If you have understood this, awesome. Not understood this, please let me know. Now, this is a shortcut. Now, understand what did we do actually. Let me just explain you what did we do. So, calculator shortcut. Calculator shortcut I will tell. Take up calculator, type in calculator 1.10 divided by equals. How many times you have to press equals? Total 5 years. So 5 times you have to press equals. Equals. Even if one time more if you press, whole thing will become wrong. So you have to press equals and then at the end press GT. In case you don't have a GT button in the calculator, then you cannot use this shortcut. You have to have a GT button in the calculator. Otherwise, you cannot use this function. Without the GT button, it is going to be very, very complicated. Most likely, you are going to go wrong. So 1 plus 10%. Alright, 1 plus 10%. So in calculator you have to do 1.10. 1 plus 10% don't do. 1.10. 1.10 divided equals and then press GT. In some of the calculator you may have to press divided by twice. Divide. Twice you will have to press and you will get 3.791. Check out this. If you are getting, then I will proceed. $3.791. Did you guys get it? I have a long way to go. 3.7899, 3.791, all that is very approximate. Alright, so this is how you are going to get the calculator shortcut. The formula for present value interest factor annuity is equals to interest into 1 plus r to the power n minus 1 divided by 4.169, you have pressed equals more divided by r into 1 plus r to the power n. This is the formula. This is the formula for. Now, how do you calculate? 0.10 into 1 plus r is 0.10 to the power n. What is n? 5 years minus 1 divided by r 0.10 into 1.10 to the power 5. If you understand this formula, okay. If you don't understand this formula, don't worry. Did you guys understand this formula? Not understood? Forget it. Forget it. Let me start with some questions. I will tell you. Okay, fine. Let us again come back. You have invested $500,000 and the cash flow for year 1 to year 5 is 200,000 per annum, and you are getting how much? You are getting $758,200. This is the amount of money we are receiving. I hope till here all of you are clear. I am just getting started once again with everything. Now what does it mean? It means if you are investing today, you have invested today when you have invested in year 0, and if you get return, entire amount of return in year 0 only, then you are going to get 500, you are going to invest 500,000, and in year 0 value terms, you are not going to get money in year 0. But if I convert into year 0 value, you are going to get 7,58,200. Means in real value terms, you are getting $2,58,200 as net profit in real value terms. In number wise, how much are you getting? You have invested 500,000 and you are getting how much? You are getting 1 million in number wise. If I just look at numbers, you are getting 1 million, you have invested 500,000, net gain is 500,000 in number wise. But in real value terms, your net gain is only this much amount of money. If you have understood this, awesome. If you have not understood this, let me again tell you what is happening behind the scene. Alright, behind the scene is important to understand. Now, suppose entire capital budgeting decision, we are going to do this. So here we have year 1, we have year 2, we have year 3, we have year 4 and we have year 5. Remember the format because I am going to use it in every question which requires such kind of calculation. So here is given. Then second is cash flow. How much is the cash flow? We have $200,000 as cash flow every year. Now, I am telling you behind the scene what is happening, how the formula is derived, so that you understand this is nothing great, this is basic mathematics. Now, here we are using present value interest factor, not annuity. Present value interest factor we are using, and here we are using present value of cash flow, or we are computing present value of cash flow. Suppose Suppose, understand from here, suppose you have invested 500,000, done. At the end of year 1, you are getting $200,000 as return at the end. So you are not getting this for now. Just don't look at those numbers. You are getting year 1, you are getting $200,000. All right. So you can calculate only for this 200,000 present value of a single amount. How do you calculate that? So present value of a single amount, we know present value of a single amount is equals to single amount or future value into present value interest factor. This 200,000 you are going to get today or you are going to get after 1 year. So you are going to get after 1 year. So this 200,000 is future value. So future value into present value interest factor. You will get present value of this cash flow. Agreed? Now, how much is this going to be? If it is 10%, if you calculate, it is going to be 0.909. So 200,000 multiplied by 0.909, how much it comes? So it comes 181,800. Now, next, you have invested 500,000. Forget the year 1 now. Forget this. You have invested 500,000. Suppose you are going to get one return. When? At the end of year 2. Remember, at the end of year 2, you are going to get this. So how do you calculate this? How will you calculate this present value? So in that case, present value of a single amount will be future value into present value interest factor. Agreed? But this money is coming when? This money is coming after the gap of 1 year. So in that case, this value, when you calculate in calculator, how will you calculate? Take up calculator, type in calculator 1.10 divided by equals. So you will get 0.826. Means, understand the meaning. Understand the meaning. 1 rupee or $1 today now is equals to $1 only. $1 today after 1 year is equals to $0.909. $1 today is equals to $0.826 after 2 years. In other words, after 2 years, the value of $1 will fall and become 0.826 cents or dollars. The value of $1 will fall and become 0.909 after 1 year. So after 1 year, this will be the value. After 2 years, this will be the value. After 3 years, it will be $0.751. Like this, the value will keep falling. Same $1, the value of $1 will fall. Able to understand? Same thing is happening here. So 200,000. What will be the value of $1 after 3 years? At the end of 3 years, if you calculate, it will be 0.751. How are we calculating? Type in calculator 1 divided by 1.10 equals 3 times. If you press, you will get this value, or you can directly do 1.10 divided by equals. Calculator understand both the language. So 1.10 divided by equals. You will get this value. Means $1 after 3 years is going to be worth this much only. $1 after 4th year or after 4 years is going to be this much only. $1 after 5 years is going to be this much only. So value of dollar is falling. All right. I hope all of you are able to understand this. Now mathematically understand. If you understand mathematics clearly, I am sure all of you will able to understand. If you don't understand mathematics also, then also you will understand. Why will you not understand? Now, let's look at this once again here. There are 2 ways of solving this. One way of solving is 200,000 multiplied by this multiplied by this multiplied by this. Everything I am multiplying. This is one way of solving. The other way of solving mathematically is all these numbers are common numbers. So can I say 200,000 as common? I am just doing mathematics. I am taking 200,000 as common. And can I take this number and sum it total? If I sum it total 0.909, 0.826, 0.751 plus 0.683 plus 0.621. If I sum it together, you will find this total will come 3.791 approximately. Try out in calculator. If you add all these numbers, you will get 3.791. And then I am using a shortcut formula. 2 lakh I have taken common and 2 lakh multiplied by this much money I am doing, and I am getting the value how much? 200,000 multiplied by 3.791. I am getting 758,200. I am getting this much value. Now understand what is happening behind the scene. Behind the scene, if I convert this into a formula, this is the amount of annuity. So I am telling this is amount of annuity. And this is nothing but present value interest factor annuity. How? Present value interest factor you are calculating for 5 years. This, and at the end you are pressing GT. GT means sum of all these 5 numbers, which is this. Understand again? Take up calculator. Let's do it once again. Type in calculator 1.1 divided by equals. So you are getting 0.909. Agree? Press once more equals. You are getting this. Press once more. You are getting this. Press once more, you are getting this, and last one, once more you are getting this. In some of the calculator, if it is not coming, you have to press divide by twice. In case it is still not coming, you have to press 1 divided by 1.1 equals. Like that you have to press. That way 100% it will come. Now if you see all these values have come. Now at the end, sum total, add all these values. How to add in calculator? Press GT. GT means gross total of all the numbers that was displayed in the screen after pressing equals. Those numbers get added in the calculator. So you get 3.791. And that is what is the formula: present value of an annuity. Present value of an annuity is equals to amount of annuity into present value interest factor annuity. Now you tell me this number is taken as common when these numbers are constant. But if these numbers are not constant, can we take this number as common? Answer is not at all. Then the question arises, how are we going to calculate that in that case? So what are we going to do in that case is, we are going to do a long cut method. In long cut method, we have to write cash flow of each year and multiply with this number, and then write here and then sum it total. Whatever we have summed it, this is called present value of cash flow. When are we going to use this long cut method? When the amount of cash flow is not uniform or there is no annuity. Then only we are going to use this formula or use this table. When the amount of cash flow is not constant. Can I have a yes or no if you have understood? If you want to repeat, I will repeat. Alright, so what is this? This is nothing but present value interest factor annuity. Alright, present value interest factor annuity. How do we calculate this? Calculator shortcut is much easier than anything else. Table and all, if you sit down and see, most likely you will take more time than what you can do it here in calculator. Alright. I will repeat again. How did you get this 0.909? 1 divided by 1 plus rate of interest. If to the power is 3, then once if you press, you will get 0.909 if rate of interest is 10%. Alright. If rate of interest is 15%, this value will be different. This value will be different. Now, if you have understood this, awesome. If you have not understood it, no problem. When we go to practical question, I am going to repeat all these concepts over and over again till I find all of you becoming comfortable with it. Now, this is a calculator. There is a calculator shortcut formula for present value interest factor annuity. Is there a calculator shortcut formula for future value interest factor annuity? Answer is no. There is no calculator shortcut formula for future value interest factor annuity. So you have to use table for this. But there is a long cut formula in calculator. That long cut formula I will teach you later. Now, coming back to this, let us do few more questions and then we will wrap up time value of money. We will directly jump into the chapter. One question I want you to solve this. Find present value of 2 million received or to be received. 2 million to be received at the end of year 10. Alright, considering R is equals to 10%. Considering R is equals to 10%. So first, find the present value of 2 million. So quickly tell me 2 million is which value? 2 million is future value. So we will use that formula. Yes. Which formula we will use? Whatever is being asked, that formula we will use. If it asks present value, so present value is equals to. If they ask future value, then future value is equals to. So present value is equals to, yes, tell me future value of a single amount. We are being more specific, of a single amount into present value interest factor annuity. No, it is a single amount. Now, how much is the future value? 1 million is the future value into present value interest factor. Take up calculator, I will take it slow. So how do you calculate this? 1 divided by 1.10. Why 10? Because rate of interest is 10%. Alright, to the power 10. How to calculate that? Take up calculator, we will calculate 1 divided by 1.10 equals. So you will get 0.3855. 0.3855. What does it mean? It means $1 of today is worth equals to $0.3855 after 10 years. In other words, what you are able to buy at 30 paisa or $1 today, you will not be able to buy after 10 years because that $1 value will become 0.3855 after 10 years. So, how much will be the answer? 1 million multiplied by 0.3855. So, you will get 385,500. This is the amount of money that you are going to get after 10 years. I hope all of you have understood this. Okay, sorry, it's 2 million. I have multiplied it 1 million. Sorry, it's 2 million. So it will be 771,000. Round off to the 4 decimal. I have mentioned to you maximum 4 decimal you need to round it off. Now if you have understood all this, let us jump in and start with the chapter. Before I get started, let me tell you, section E is a very important section. Is it easy? Answer is yes, it is easy, provided you understand everything. It's a very practical section. But this topic has been divided into two, or this section has been divided into two topics. In one, topic 1, we talk about the theory aspect of this section. I don't feel it is very important that you need to go through the entire theory to understand the practical part of it. But as a precaution, because we have students from different backgrounds, I want just to go through the theory once so that all of you are on the same page. Once we are on the same page, we will go to the practical, possibly in the next class, and we are going to rock everything there. There are a lot of formulas that we need to know, and I will ensure that you remember all the formula. We will take maximum 3 to 4 classes to complete this entire section. Alright, let us get started with capital budgeting process. What is capital budgeting? Understand this. There are two kinds of investments that we do. One is a long-term investment, one is a short-term investment. Remember, short-term investments are funded or financed through short-term borrowings. What are short-term investments? Basically, investment in working capital generally is considered as short-term investments. What are long-term investments? Long-term investments are basically investments in capital assets of the company. We are not talking about investment in share market and debentures market. No, we are not talking about that at all in this chapter. We are talking about investments in assets of the company, acquisition of new assets, or expansion of the company, replacement of the old machinery. We are talking about those kinds of investments here. Basically, we are dealing with the asset side of the balance sheet. Now, why is it very important to take these decisions? Because these decisions are very, very long term. First. Second, it involves a huge amount of investment. Third, if it fails, the company may collapse. If it succeeds, it's going to be great, but in case it fails, the company may collapse because it involves so much amount of money. So such a decision cannot be taken just like that. We need to be very conscious. We need to do a lot of analysis to take certain decisions which are long term. Like I mentioned, we are talking about investment in capital assets of the company. In short form, we call such expenditures or such investments as capital expenditure, or in more fancy word, we call it capex. There are certain other kind of expenditure which we call it operational expenditure. Operational means expenditure into day-to-day business operations of the company, which in more fancier word, again we call it OPEX. Alright, so OPEX is operating expenses, capex means capital expenses. I am just taking you to the entire theory of this chapter so that in the next class we can start with the practical part of it. Capital budgeting is the process of evaluating and selecting long-term investments that are in line with the goal of investors' wealth maximization. In this topic, we would be learning about capital budgeting or planning for the capital expenditure, which in sometimes referred to as capex. So here we are talking about capital budgeting, investing in long-term assets. When a business makes a capital investment, assets such as equipment, building, land, etc., it incurs a cash outlay in the expansion or in the expectation of future benefits. The expected benefits generally extend beyond 1 year because these are long-term investments. Out of different investment proposals available to a business, it has to choose a proposal that provides the best return, and the return equals to or greater than required by the investor. So as long as my return is higher than what I am expecting, my returns are greater than the expected return, I am going to invest in this project. The question is, how do I calculate what is the returns that we are getting from the project? So for doing that, there are so many methods that we need to learn, such as NPV, PI, IRR, payback period. There are many methods that we are going to learn under this to find out what is the returns that we are getting, and is it more than my required rate of return, less than, how will I take decision if it meets my expectation. All that we are going to learn in this topic. In simple terms, capital investment or capital budgeting involves evaluating investment proposals. So I have got 4 or 5 investment proposals. I am evaluating which one I am going to choose. Next, estimating and evaluating the post-tax increment cash flow for each of the investment proposal. To evaluate any investment proposal, I need to know how much is the cash flow that I am going to get. Remember, for evaluation of long-term investment proposals, we do not look at net profit. Why we do not look at net profit is because net profit does not give me a clear idea about the cash flow. For example, if I want to invest money, I am interested in how much cash I will get, not how much is the book profits that I will get, because book profit can be influenced with credit sales also. If I am only having credit sales and no cash, how will I run the business? So when I look at cash flow and net profit, better analysis are done through cash flow. That is why we importantly look at the cash flow numbers here. Selection of the investment proposal that maximizes the return to the investor. So how do we select? There are various methods that we are going to learn under this method, selection of method. Current expense. What are current expense? Let us go through this terminology because we will be using these terminologies in the chapter. Current expenses are basically those expenses which are not of a capital nature. In other words, current expenses generally are operating expenses. Alright. Example, working capital investment, those are or investment in day-to-day operation, paying salary, paying wages, these are all current expenses. These are not long-term investment. In fact, just opposite of capital expense is current expense. But when we talk about capital, we don't call it capital expenditure. We generally call it capital investment. If you call it expenditure, there is nothing wrong. Why do we call it capital investment? Because generally expenditure, the benefits are restricted to 1 year. That is why we call it expense. But investment, the benefits go on for several years. For example, buying a house, we don't call it expenditure, we call it investment. But buying a provision for house, that we call it expenditure, because the benefit of the provision that we have in the kitchen is limited to a very small period. But owning a house, the benefit is going to surpass long period. That is why we call it investments. But there is nothing wrong in calling it capital expenditure also. There is nothing wrong. What is current investments? Current investments are those investments which are readily realizable, which we can sell as and when we intend to. So these are very short-term investments, which we call it as current investments. What are operating budget? Operating budget are basically those budgets that are created to manage our day-to-day business expenditures, sales, purchases, purchase of goods, payment of wages, payment of salary, all those which we maintain is called operating budget. For example, production budget, sales budget, cash budget, inventory budget. These are all operating budget which are for the day-to-day business operations of the company. What are capital expenditures or capex? Capex are long-term in nature. They are the funds used by a company to acquire, upgrade and maintain physical assets such as property, plants, building, technology, equipment. Capex is often used to undertake new projects or investments by a company. So these are very long-term investments and lot of money goes into such investments. That is why lot of consideration or lot of factors have to be considered before such investments are made. Capital budget. Capital budget is a plan of proposed outlays for acquiring or constructing long-term assets. We learned about operating budget. In operating budget, we were talking about day-to-day business operations. How much revenue we have, how much expenses we have, how much cash we are going to receive, how much cash we are going to pay. Those are part of our operating budget. In capital budget, we look at the long-term picture. Over a long-term period, how much investments we have to do, how much assets we have to acquire, which company we are going to acquire, which assets we are going to acquire, which business segment we are going to enter, which product launch we are going to do. So these are very long-term decisions, very important decisions for the stability, sustenance and growth of the company. And since lot of money goes into it, it has to be planned quite well in advance. Just like that, I cannot plan this. Okay, fine. Tomorrow I am going to buy a huge heavy machinery, and for buying that machinery, I need to go to bank or I need to issue debentures. No, it will not happen like that. There has to be good amount of planning which has to go to capital for capital investments. Capital budgeting applications. When a business makes a capital investment, it incurs a cash outlay in the expectation of future benefits. The expected benefits generally extend beyond 1 year in the future. Out of different investment proposals available to a business, it has to choose proposal that provides better returns and returns equal to or greater than that required by the investor. How do we do all that? What all methods do we use to analyze all this? We will be learning this subsequently. Next important point, what are the objectives of capital budgeting? You don't have to memorize anything. You just need to understand all this. Practically also, I will be teaching you all such things. But theoretically, to handle MCQ question properly and to handle essay questions, I am teaching you all this. Objectives of capital budgeting. Why are we doing capital budgeting? Why do we sit down, write all those numbers, analyze it, use several formulas to come to conclusion? The first and the most important reason is substantial expenditure. For example, you are just going to buy a small thing. For example, you went and bought maybe a speaker for a Bluetooth speaker for $500 bucks. Now, did you think for 1 month or 2 months before buying a $500 bucks speaker? Answer is no. You would be like, it does not make much of a difference. Even if it is a bad investment, it is not going to be too much of a problem for you. But before buying a car, do you think? Yes, we sit down and analyze all the possible cars that is available, which is better option or which has better features. All that we look at it and then we decide which car to buy, because so much money you are spending on one car. Second, irreversible decision. If you have bought a car, you are not going to sell it just like that. In case you wish to sell, you will not get same price. You are going to lose a lot of money on that car. So first reason why do we do capital budgeting, why do we sit down analyze so much, is because it involves substantial expenditure. There is a good amount of money which you are spending. And second important reason is long-term period. What you are going to invest today is not going to give you return immediately. It is going to give you return over a period of time. And because a long time period is involved, you want to ensure that you have decided with proper data and with proper detailing. Otherwise, in the long run, you are going to suffer because irreversible decision. Almost. It's not that it is irreversible. It is irreversible in the sense, if you go back on your decision, you are going to lose a lot of money. For example, you bought a car, especially high-end car. You bought a BMW. You spent 80 lakh rupees on a BMW. Go back to sell this BMW. after maybe 1 month. Try out. My friend, dad, he bought what is that car? Jaguar. He bought a Jaguar, and within less than 8 months, he had to sell the Jaguar because of some reason, and they lost 30 lakh rupees on the resale value. Just in less than 1 year, 30 lakh rupees is lost on the resale value. It's a brand new car, hardly used. Jaguar is not something that you use every day for going to random places. You use it on special occasion, and 30 lakh lost in just less than 1 year. So that is why it is called irreversible decision, because you are going to lose lot of money on the resale of that car. Next, complex decision. It is not going to be easy decision. Why? Because the time period involved, what you are going to see today may change tomorrow. So because of the long period involved, it becomes very, very complex. For example, you go to the market and buy the best car available today. After 2 years, your car will look little outdated. After 5 years, your car will be very outdated, because technology, everything is changing so fast today. So it becomes a very complex decision, because you are assessing future. What is future going to be? We do not know. For example, I'll tell you one very funny example. There was a river in the US over which one bridge was made. Alright, so it was a very long bridge, and because that area was very disturbed due to hurricane and constant flooding, one bridge was made, and it was a very fine bridge made by Japanese. And they were very happy that finally this river has been tamed and we are able to use this bridge. And then what happened? A very severe cyclone and hurricane happened, and which changed the entire route of the river. And what happened? What happened is a lot of fun. So it so happened that the river was here and the bridge was made. So this bridge was very good, beautiful bridge. It did not collapse in such heavy hurricane also. It did not. It was like firm, stood behind. So many other bridges collapsed. This guy did not collapse. But in that hurricane, I don't know if you know that the river also changes route over a period of time. Due to heavy flooding, river will completely change its route. So the river changed its route and started flowing from here. And this bridge is still standing, but there is no river below it. Check out in Google. It's amazing bridge. Very fine, but the river is not there below the bridge anymore. So like that, because I'm seeing something in the future. In the future, what is going to happen, I do not know. So it becomes very, very complex. The US made the bridge, but bridge is of no use today. Project and time dimensions in capital budgeting. Two important aspects of capital budgeting are the project dimension and the time dimension. So we have to look at both the project dimension and the time dimension. What do we do in the project dimension? Capital budgeting decisions look at projects that span multiple accounting periods. And time dimension, since capital budgeting decision has the potential to generate high cash flows in the future, such decisions cannot be based solely on current accounting period's income statement. Understand this. If I just look at the accounting profit, most likely I am never going to invest. Why? Because the moment I buy an asset, depreciation starts. And what will happen with heavy depreciation? My net income will start falling in the initial years. Understand this. This is important. So my net income in the initial years will start falling because of huge depreciation from the new assets. You will say, sir, the new asset you have bought, so you are using it for something. Production is happening, sales are happening. You are going to earn higher profits. Answer is yes, quite possible. But if you remember, life cycle of a product is like this. This is the life cycle of a product. Means initial days Are you going to have very heavy sales? No, you are going to have heavy. This looks very ugly graph. I'll make a much better looking graph. So in the initial days, my sales are not going to be very high. Only during this stage, my sales becomes high. So what about the accounting profit during this stage? My accounting profit is going to show very less profits because sales will be low. Depreciation in the beginning of the years are generally higher compared to end of the year if we are following accelerated method of depreciation. So because of higher depreciation, we are going to have lesser accounting profit. All right. So here in project dimension and time dimension, we'll look at both the aspect, how it is going to affect my accounting profits, how is it going to generate cash over a period of time, how is it going to impact my future profits. Stages in capital budgeting. What are the stages in capital budgeting? In simple words, what all step by step we go to finalize or find out which investment, which project, which machinery we are going to acquire. So first we do planning, of course. Based on planning, we understand whether we want to go left, whether we want to go right, whether we want to go straight. Based on planning, we decide. In other words, we want to launch a new product, we want to get into a new market, we want to expand further. All these we do in the planning stage. Once we have done the planning, then we identify. Now, fine, we have decided we are going to go in this route. So we identify what all we can do. Should we buy this machinery? Should we buy that machinery? Should we do? So many options are there. We identify which option is favorable to us. Once we have identified, we find out how much money we have to invest. We find out what are alternatives available, because first option looks good, but we should also look at alternatives which are available to us. Can we go to the second option? Maybe initial investment may be low, working capital investment may be low. Do I need such a heavy machinery immediately? Don't know. We have to do all that search to find out what suits our requirement. Based on that, we evaluate whether it is exactly meeting our requirement or not. How do we evaluate? We evaluate whether it is meeting our requirement based on different methods. For example, rate of return, net present value computation, payback period computation, IRR computation. Based on that, we evaluate the projects to find out which of the project is meeting our requirement and which is giving the highest amount of returns. So in the evaluation stage, we get that. Once we have got that, we are going to do selection. All this we will learn once again practically. I will tell you how these are done practically so that you will understand much better there. So selection. After the evaluation, we have 5 projects. And out of 5 projects, 1 project was giving negative return. Negative return, we are not going to look into it at all. Now remaining 4 are giving positive returns. So we will further use methods for further analysis to find out which of the 4 is giving the highest and the best amount of return. And based on that, we will do selection. Now, once we have done the selection, we are going to look at how are we going to finance the project. From where are we going to get this money? So that is what we call it as financing option. After that, we are going to look at control, how our objectives are met through proper supervision and control so that it is managed properly. Our day-to-day operations are managed in line with what we had planned. That is part of our control, wherein every year on year, whatever we have planned, we are comparing with the actual results to see whether things are moving in the right direction or not. And last one is based on whatever control we have put, analysis we have done, we are going to review whether we are heading right, doing it right or not. In case any modification changes are required, we will do at the review stage. Next, what are the different types of capital budgeting decision? The different types of capital budgeting decision in the sense, under what circumstances we do capital budgeting. For example, we are going for modernization. Entire factory we are going to modernize, change the old machinery and buy new machinery. We call it replacement decision. Replacement decision because we are changing the older machineries, scrapping the older equipments and going for new modern equipment. Why are we doing that? To bring about efficiency, operational efficiency. First objective. Next objective is to reduce the cost and increase productivity. So we go for replacement or modernization to reduce my cost of production, to improve operational efficiency, to increase productivity. Expansion decision. We are fine, the current factory is good, but we want to expand the size of the factory. So we are not replacing any old machinery, we are rather buying new machineries for expansion project, because we have achieved a good growth in the market. To meet the new demand in the market, we want to expand our business. The third option is diversification decision. We want to diverse our product line, get into new products, get into new market. We want to grow our business, reach different market. For example, Reliance. Reliance is constantly going on diversification. They were only into petroleum. They entered into so many other business, and now they have entered into the telecommunication business. What are they doing? They are doing diversification. In addition to telecommunication, they also are expanding their business into retails. They have already acquired the Future Group, the retail business of it. Again, when they acquired the Future Group, they are going into expansion. When they went into telecommunication, they have gone into diversification. Incremental cash flow. How do we calculate incremental cash flow? This is very important and going to be little technical for you in the beginning. But once we go on to practical questions, I am going to touch upon every point and explain you once again there at that point. Key points in evaluating capital budgeting investment or capital investments cash flow. Now, first is, what is cash flow? Let's understand what is cash flow, then it will help you understand all these points. For example, there is something called profit. But for analysis purpose, we do not look at profit, because profit is not equals to cash. Why? Because profit is computed based on different accounting policies. US GAAP, IFRS. Profit takes into account both credit sales, credit purchases, cash purchases, provisions, depreciation. There are so many things. So is profit going to be equals to cash? Answer is no. How do you run business? Just by profits or by actual hard cash? Answer is, profit is important, but cash is more important. You may not have profit, but as long as you have cash, you can still run your business. Alright, so we analyze all capital budgeting decision based on cash flow. Question is, how do we calculate cash flow? So let me just explain you this. So first we have sales. Alright, we have sales. From sales we subtract what? We subtract variable cost. I am going very detailed as possible. So we subtract variable cost. What do we get? We get contribution. From contribution we subtract fixed cost. This fixed cost is operational fixed cost. Operational fixed cost. Operational fixed cost, generally if nothing is mentioned, it means it is depreciation. It may have other items also, but operational fixed cost will necessarily have depreciation in it. It may also have other items of fixed cost. For example, rent is a fixed cost. So here fixed cost can include depreciation plus rent. If nothing is mentioned, it is always assumed that this fixed cost is talking about only depreciation and nothing else. In case nothing is mentioned, what do you get here? You get operating profit. Operating profit is also called EBIT. Alright, till here I am sure all of you remember this. EBIT, PBIT, operating profit, whatever you want to call it. From operating profit or EBIT, we subtract the interest portion. Interest is also a fixed cost, but it is a financing fixed cost. Alright. Now, what do you get? You get EBT. From EBT, you subtract taxes. What do you get after subtracting taxes? You get EAT. EAT plus depreciation. EAT plus depreciation is called cash flow. And we are talking about inflow. So, to be more specific, it is called cash inflow. This cash inflow will happen over the life of the project. For example, you have bought a machinery now in year 0. So, this machinery is going to last for the next, suppose 3 years. Then this cash inflow is going to happen for how many years? 3 years only. Because after 3rd year, this machinery will be scrapped. So, you are going to get cash flow for how many years? 3 years. How are you going to calculate cash flow? Sales from this asset. Suppose you already had a certain amount as sales from some other old asset. And if you want to analyze exclusively this asset performance, then we call it incremental sales. Means sales from previous asset and sales from both the assets together. And the difference is called incremental sales. Understand through example, I had an old asset, and through this old asset, my sales was suppose 100,000. And this new asset, if I have not kept separate records, then problem will happen. If I have kept exactly separate records for the new asset, which is 200,000, okay. But in case I don't have separate records for the old and the new, then only one way. Old was how much? 100,000. And new means old plus new, both the machinery together. Your to date turnover is 300,000. Then how much is because of the new one only, which we call it incremental. For example, earlier with the old machinery you are earning or you are having a sales of 100,000. Now after expansion, diversification, all that you have done, you are having a sales of 300,000. So how much is the incremental sales that you are having? You are having 200,000 of incremental sales. When do we use incremental? When this detail and this detail are not available. Here the breakup of old and new is not available. So what we do, we find out this detail and subtract the old detail. The difference we call it incremental. Like I mentioned, practically I will keep explaining you. Understanding all this in a practical manner is much easier than just reading theory about it. What is very important here is the format of computation of cash flow. This is a very detailed format. Do we need to remember so much? Answer is till here all of you remember. Yes, and I am sure less interest, EBT, this till here also all of you remember. There is nothing that I have to explain. Only one thing is add depreciation. This is only one thing that I want you to remember. Once you add depreciation, whatever amount that you get, that is called cash flow. Now the question is, why do you add depreciation? Because depreciation is a non-cash expenditure. It is a non-cash expenditure. Means you have bought a new asset. On that new asset there is a huge depreciation. But are you paying any money towards depreciation to any person? Answer is no. It is a non-cash expenditure. But in your earnings after taxes, your profit is showing low because of non-cash expenditure. Are you paying depreciation? Answer is no. Then you may tell me, sir, in that case, why to subtract depreciation? Don't subtract depreciation. when you have to subtract first and add later, then why to subtract? Answer is we need to subtract because depreciation has an impact on taxes. That is why we need to subtract. If we do not subtract depreciation, we will end up paying higher amount as taxes. Alright, that is why we have to subtract depreciation to find out correct amount of taxes. To find out cash flow, we need to subtract depreciation. I hope you are comfortable. Not comfortable, like I mentioned, practically I am going to teach you everything once again. So if you are comfortable, awesome. Not comfortable, getting little doubt, keep those doubts for some time. Once we go into the practical part of it, all doubts will disappear. Let's go to the next part. So key points in evaluating cash flow. So first, let's read this. Incremental cash flow. Estimating future cash flow is one of the most important tasks in capital budgeting because we need to see sometime in the future how much cash I will receive in the future. Is it not difficult? Imagine, sit down today and think how much will be your salary 5 years down the line, 6 years down the line, 7 years down the line. Is it not complex decision? It is complex. First, I don't know tomorrow what will happen to my life 5 years down the line. How can I think? You never know. I will also follow our honorable president. Unfortunately, he died today. So, I don't know 5 years down the line what will happen. So, it's difficult to think about so much in the future. And if the asset is going to be there for 10 years, we have to think how much cash flow will happen over a period of 10 years. To understand this, we just not only need to look at the production capacity or production possibility, we also need to look at the market demand. I may be able to produce, but will I be able to sell so much? That is so important for you to know. So a firm must be able to evaluate the difference between its cash flow with or without an investment project, where all the relevant cost and benefit are those which have an effect during the project. What are the key important points that you must look into? The first important point you must look into is depreciation. Remember, depreciation is not a cash item, fine, but it has an impact on cash outflow. How? By way of taxes. If depreciation is not taken into account, my tax amount will increase, which will lead to higher cash outflow in the form of taxes, which will turn out to be lower cash inflow from the project. So depreciation is one of the very important factor which needs to be considered. Opportunity cost. All of you know what is opportunity cost. So when we look at project, we also look at the opportunity cost of investment. And based on the opportunity cost, we find out whether this project is better or vis-a-vis other projects, whether this machinery, other machinery, all that we analyze. Remember one important point, opportunity cost should always be looked into while evaluating projects. How do we look into opportunity cost? Based on the question. Every question will not have opportunity cost to be factored into, but in case it has, we must analyze and look into opportunity cost for better decision making. Sunk cost. Sunk cost is a very important cost. Sometimes when we think about the future, we must forget our past. In similar lines, when we are looking at future prospect or future project, and if any cost has already been incurred in the past, and where that cost or that money which you have already incurred in the past cannot be refunded to you, then there is no point looking into the past for future decision. Whatever has happened in the past, if it is irreversible, we call it sunk cost. For example, you want to explore oil in an oil field. Complicated? Let's talk about your home. You want to get a borewell done in your village. You have paid money for the borewell. He does drilling. Water does not come. It just does not come. What has happened? Whatever money you have paid to the borewell is gone. it became sunk cost. Alright, so what is sunk cost? Sunk cost is irrelevant for your future decision making. Working capital is very important. Most of the people go wrong with working capital. I don't want any confusion with working capital. Working capital is the amount of money that you are going to invest today, but you are going to get it back at the end of the project. So when you are investing the working capital, you must consider it as a cash outflow. And when you are getting this money back, you must look into it as a cash inflow. Remember, when you are investing in the project, working capital is a cash outflow. When your project is coming to an end, same working capital will become a cash inflow. But the value of the same money will be different. Because if you have invested this money in year 0, 100,000, suppose your life of the project is 5 years, you are going to get this money back when? At the end of year 5. Is the value of 100,000 today and the value of 100,000 after 5 years going to be the same? Answer is not at all. The value will differ, depends upon what is the rate of interest. So we need to factor the time value of money. Everywhere, entire capital budgeting, we need to factor time value of money. Otherwise, your decision will be nonsense. Because money spent today and money received tomorrow or over a period of time, the value of money is going to change. We must factor in the value of money also in every capital decision project. And that is why I taught you the time value of money as a basic for you to understand this entire topic. Next, items of cash. Items of cash means all the items that are going to affect the cash inflow, cash outflow has to be examined. Inflation. Inflation is going to eat over the returns that you are going to get. If there is a higher inflation, there has to be higher rate of interest what you are using, or what we call it as cost of capital, or we call it discounting factor. What are all this? Practically, I will explain you once again. So inflation should always be factored into, because if the project is going to give you returns over a very long period of time, because of very high inflation, the value of that money that you are going to receive may fall substantially. Number wise it will look good, but value wise it will not be a good project to invest in. So you must factor in the effect of inflation in your business decision. Additional capital investment. When you are starting a project, it is not necessary that you will need to invest money only at the beginning of the period. It may be quite possible that over a period of time or at frequent interval you need to pump in more money. Is it possible? 100% yes, it is possible that after each interval you need to pump in more money as you go. For example, you invested $1 million today to start a project, and then you invested working capital also another $100,000. So 1.1 million you have invested, and life of the project is 10 years. That does not mean that you will not invest any money. Possible that after 2 years another set of maybe $200,000 more may have to be invested again. So we need to factor in how much is the additional capital investment. When will we have to do this? Will we have enough sufficient money at that point in time? What is the funding option we are looking at? All that has to be factored into in each capital budgeting or capital investment decision. Cash inflows and cash outflows during a capital budgeting project. I have given you a lot of formats for computing it. In case you want to look into the format, you can look into it. It will help you understand or do a question much faster. If you can look into this and follow the same formats, it will help you solve the question at much faster pace. But not necessary that you must follow these formats only. We can create our own format. These are only for guidance purpose. In case you are lost, put the format, put the data, answer will come without much efforts. And that is why this format will be useful for you under different situations. First one, initial cash outflow, which we call it cash flow in year 0. Cash flow in year 0 necessarily means cash outflow only, because first you will plant a seed or first you will pluck the mango. In year 0 you cannot pluck the mango, you have to plant a seed only. When can you pluck the mango? Maybe end of year 0, which we call it year 1. End of year 2 you can pluck more mangoes. End of year 3, 4 you can pluck more. But the moment you have planted seed, you cannot pluck anything. You have to keep putting water. So here also initial cash outflow means cash flow in year 0. Now, how much money you are going to invest? So the initial cash flow for a project depends upon the type of the capital investment decision. First one, if decision is related to investment in a fresh proposal or an expansion proposal, then initial cash flow shall be computed as follows. So we are going to buy a new machinery. So this is the cost of the new asset. The moment we buy a machinery is not going to start running on its own. We need to invest money to get it installed and make it ready to use. So how much money we are going to invest, that is also my investment. Then next, I am going to invest in working capital, because just because I have bought a machinery is not going to start production on its own. I need to buy raw material. I need to have cash, little cash balance to meet my day-to-day business operations. I need some creditors, I will have some debtors. So all that will be investment in working capital. When will you do? Now, when you are starting a new project. Imagine starting a new project is like starting a new business. What all do you need? You are starting a manufacturing business. What are you manufacturing? You are manufacturing water bottle. You need machinery to mold this plastic. You need raw material, plastic. You need little cash to pay your salary, wages, rent. So you need machinery. You need to get that machinery installed, and you need to have some cash balance, some money in your hand to meet day-to-day business expenditure. Total amount of money what you are going to need today is called initial cash outflow. Initial cash outflow is nothing but cash flow in year 0. And cash flow in year 0 necessarily means cash outflow only. Now, this was when a fresh proposal was there. Fresh proposal, new business you are doing. Or you are expanding into a new line, or buying or expanding new areas, or expanding the size of your operation. So in that case, this is the format that you can use to find out what? To find out cash outflow. Now next, in case you are going for a replacement decision. Replacement decision is always going to be complex for you. You have to be very, very careful in replacement decision, because it is going to be complex for you. How do you calculate replacement decision? Understand, in replacement decision, I have a machinery. This machinery is already making plastic bottles, but the number of units it is able to produce per day is very low. Why? Because when I started business, the demand was very low. I bought a lesser capacity machinery. But now the demand has increased substantially. I want to go for heavy machinery. I want per day production to be 1000 bottles. Earlier machinery is only giving me 200 bottles. So I want per day production to be 1000 bottles. So I want a heavy machinery now. In that case, what am I going to do? I am going to replace my old machinery with a new machinery. Why will I have both the machinery? It is just going to consume lot of manpower and lot of electricity. The new machinery is more efficient. So what I will do? I will replace the old machinery with a new machinery. That's what we do when we buy car. We have only one parking available. So what do? We go to the showroom and we say, buy my old car, sell your new car. There are so many car showrooms which allow this facility as replacement. Replacement does not mean that he is going to give you new car without taking money. Yes, he is going to take money for the new car and take your old car and deduct some value for the old car which is getting replaced. Now here in this example, understand, suppose a new car cost you $100,000 and the old car you can sell at suppose $10,000. Alright, so 100,000 is the cost of a new car and $10,000 is the cost of or sale value of the old car. So net, how much are you having as cash outflow in year 0? So net you are having $90,000 as cash outflow. Alright, so we need to factor that value also. So first is cost of the new asset. Fine, that asset is not going to jump and start on its own. Somebody has to set it up, somebody has to install it. So we are going to invest money on installation and setup of that machinery. Then we have invested some working capital already, but because of a new machinery, heavy machinery, more production will happen, more inventory is required. Because of more inventory, more working capital we will be requiring. So how much is the additional working capital that we require? Additional incremental working capital what we require will be putting here. So earlier my working capital was suppose 50,000. Now my working capital should be 75,000 to function smoothly. So how much incremental working capital that I need to invest? 25,000. That 25,000 will come here. Next, I am selling my old machinery. To whom? To the same guy or maybe to some other guy. Whomsoever we sell, I don't care. I am going to get some money. When? In the same year in which I am buying a new machinery, because new machinery I can't put. There is no space. So net proceeds from the sale of old machinery will come whenever there is a replacement situation. If there is no replacement situation, this point will not come. For example, above, that point was not there because it was a fresh start. And then if I am selling my old machinery, there may be some tax impact as long-term capital gain, short-term capital gain or short-term, long-term capital loss. Alright, in Indian terminology, if I tell you, there is always a short-term capital gain or short-term capital loss for a depreciable asset. So because of this gain or loss, there will be some tax impact. Alright, there may be additional tax that you have to pay or there may be tax saving that you will get. So you must factor in the tax impact of the sale of old machinery. And then comes the initial cash outflow that you have to do in year 0. What is interim cash flows? Interim cash flows means during the life of the project, you are investing some additional cash. Like I mentioned, it is quite possible that during the life of the project also you may have to invest some money. Not necessarily that beginning only I invested, that's it. No, not necessary. During the life of the project also you may need to invest some money. That is what we call it as interim cash flows. If it is a new project, let's look at new project. If it is a new project, your profit after tax, new project, if analysis is related to a fresh or completely a new project, then the interim cash flow is calculated as follows. Your profit after tax, then non-cash expenses, you are adding it. Net increase or decrease in working capital and you get interim net cash flow for the period. Not very important for now. Don't try to understand this now. You can ignore it for now. When we go there, then we will talk about this. Similarly, interim cash flow for this, for now, you can ignore it. When we go to that particular area, then we will talk about all this. We need to learn cash flow calculation before we learn this. We need to practically understand how this is going to be computed. It will help us understand this part. Otherwise, not very important for now. Terminal year incremental net cash flow. Terminal year. What is terminal year? Before I go into this, interim cash flow can be both inflow as well as outflow. So don't think interim cash flow is going to be only in outflow or only inflow. It can be both. For example, during the life of the project, are you going to only get money? Yes, you are going to get money during the life of the project. That is true. But are you also going to invest money during the life of the project? Yes, you may be required to invest money during the life of the project. Depends upon the project demand. So interim cash flow, both kinds of cash flow will be there. Next, terminal cash flow. This is very important. Two things are very important. The first, initial investment, and the terminal investment. Especially terminal cash flow is where most people or most mistake you will land up doing. The major mistake that you will land up doing is by not considering this release of net working capital. This is the major mistake you will do. Because question will not tell you that working capital was released. It is by default assumed. Because working capital, you are not buying any machinery. You are just keeping some cash with yourself. And at the end of the project, that cash will no longer be required in that project. So what will happen eventually for that cash? It will be released to you. You can use that cash. But the time difference will happen. So, release of net working capital is very important point that you must not forget in every decision analysis and in every terminal year cash flow. So, you have a final salvage value because you are going to sell it ultimately. You may have an interim cash flow in the terminal year of the project. Ultimately at year end, for example, life of the project is 5 years. So at the end of 5 years, you are going to have some cash flow from the use of that asset for the last year. And after that, the asset is going to die. And then you will have some taxes. Either you will be liable to pay or you will be liable for a refund in terms of tax saved or tax. Negative tax is called tax saved. Alright. Or tax refund. For understanding purpose, you can call it tax refund. If it is positive taxes, then you are liable to pay it. Liable to pay means cash outflow. If it is a negative tax, you are liable to get refund of that tax. We call it tax inflow or tax saving. So when you are selling an asset, depends upon whether you have a gain or loss, you will be liable to pay taxes on the sale or disposal of the asset, pay or save taxes. How and all that I will show you. And then you will also have a release of working capital, and this is your terminal year end cash flow. Terminal means end. Like for example, terminal disease. What is terminal disease? Deathbed. The person cannot recover from that disease. He has to, or he will eventually die because of that disease. It's called terminal disease. So your terminal means end of the life of the asset. Suppose life of the project was 10 years, 10th year is called terminal year. Income tax consideration. This is important. I have given a format here because I see lot of confusion in this area. You need to remember that income tax plays a very important role in decision making and in analysis of a capital project. Income taxes will be there in every capital budgeting decision, and the impact of income tax must be factored in your analysis. Otherwise, your entire analysis is going to be unrealistic. Most importantly, the impact of income tax on tax shield. That is very, very important. You cannot ignore this. So what is tax shield? The amount of tax that you are going to save due to the existence of income tax is called tax shield. How do you calculate? Example, understand this. For example, you have a sales of how much? You have a sales of 100,000. Alright. Now, in this sales of 100,000, you will have a variable cost, you will have contribution, then you will have fixed cost, then you will have so much other expenditures, right? So, when you have a sales of 100,000, eventually you will have a profit. On profit, you will have to pay taxes. If you don't have depreciation at all, your profits will increase. Example, let me tell you this. Sales, alright, 100,000, 100,000, everything is same. Here, variable cost is same. We have a contribution is same. And then we have a fixed cost. And what is this fixed cost? Depreciation. Here there is no depreciation. Suppose there is no depreciation at all. Then my earnings before interest and taxes here and here are different. And if you look at the interest portion definitely is going to be the same because it is on the borrowed funds. But taxes, if you see here, I am paying 8,000, here I am paying 24,000 taxes. How much more taxes I am paying? Because of non-existence of depreciation. So I am paying 16,000 as taxes additionally. How? Here 8,000 taxes, here 24,000 taxes. I am paying 16,000 more taxes just because depreciation was not there. So if depreciation was there, how much tax I would have been able to save? That is called tax shield. How do we calculate that? I will tell you. But first understand what is tax shield. The amount of tax saved due to existence of depreciation is called tax shield. So does depreciation help us in paying lesser taxes? Answer is yes. Does depreciation helps us in improving the cash inflow? Answer is yes. How? For example, here 8,000 is the taxes. My cash inflow is 52,000. Alright. And here my cash inflow, here it is also showing 52,000. How and all? I will tell you. But forget this. My earnings, my total cash flow is 52,000. Here I will tell you why 52,000 is coming. Give me just one moment, because I have considered tax shield separately. Now understand the difference. Understand the difference because each question will be presented in a different style. I will finish this and we are done for today. Understand this. This is very conventional, or what I have given it a name called direct computation. It is very simple. I have subtracted depreciation in this and then calculated EBT and then calculated EAT and then added depreciation amount, exact amount what I had subtracted. If you look at it, 40,000, I had subtracted 40,000 only. This is one way of presenting or one way of computing cash flow. There is another way of computing cash flow also, wherein I am not going to factor the depreciation here at all. I am going to calculate my earnings after taxes. Just like that, as if depreciation does not exist. Alright, once we have calculated earnings after tax, then we are going to add not the depreciation but the tax shield on depreciation. Here if you see, I have added depreciation. Here I am going to add only the tax shield on depreciation. How do we calculate tax shield on depreciation? I have given the formula above. Tax shield on depreciation is equals to amount of depreciation into rate of taxes. So, how much is the amount of depreciation? 40,000. And how much is the rate of taxes we have taken? We have taken 40% as the rate of taxes. If I have not mentioned, let me just mention here 40%. Of course, 8,000 of 20,000 is 40%. 20,000 into 40% you get 8,000. So, 40% is the rate of taxes. So, Here 40,000 multiplied by 40%, we get tax shield on depreciation, and earnings after tax plus tax shield is called cash flow. You do it like direct method, you do it like indirect method, your eventual cash flow is going to be same, but question will twist you in the first format or in the second format. You should not get confused at all. Ultimately, cash flow will remain same. Alright. The two important notes what are mentioned here. First is note 1, the US Modified Accelerated Cost Review System. This is called MACRS. In India, we follow slab method for computation of depreciation under the income tax. Alright, we follow a certain slab. I am not going into detail, but we have a different rule for calculation of depreciation under income tax and different rule for computation of depreciation under IFRS or under Indian accounting standards. So there are two different, what we call it, slab or block of assets. So under Income Tax Act in India, we have a block of asset system for computation of depreciation. Whereas income tax, we have different methods altogether. Similarly, under the US GAAP also, or under the US laws also, we have MACRS system for computation of depreciation under the IRS. And for books of account, we have different methods. We have straight line method, WDV method, sum of digits method, accelerated methods, double diminishing balance method. There are so many methods for accounting purpose. So remember, for capital budgeting decision, to make it very realistic calculation, we have to look at MACRS method. This method has not been taught so far to you. First time I will be teaching you MACRS method. For exam purpose, very important. Very, very important. Is it complicated? Answer is nothing is complicated. You just need to focus in the class. Next, the decrease in tax liability due to depreciation charge is referred to as depreciation tax shield. I have already explained you. The tax shield is equals to the depreciation amount multiplied by the tax rate. Alright, with that we have almost come to just last part of this chapter. A few more pages to be covered, which is not really important. I am just covering so that you don't have to put in that additional efforts. You can also read all this. This is very basic and simple. But anyways, if you have understood this, awesome. If you have not understood any point in this part, do not worry. Practically everything will be in your fingertips once we go on to the practical part of this chapter. Those of you who still found time value of money little complicated, do not worry. Everything again we are going to recap while we reach the practical computation, because I will be solving a lot of essay questions in this area, and that will help you consolidate your knowledge and understanding of this part of the topic. With that, we have come to an end of today's session. We will catch up again. Till then, bye-bye and take care.